Oh.
Hello, welcome to this week's Monday morning musing. It's a bit of a bright but breezy day here in Manchester. It's a bit late today. I've been running around like a headless chicken all morning, so it's the first time I've had a chance to sit down and think, right, let's do the muse. So it's coming up to 11:57, so it's still the morning, but we might go into the afternoon, but never mind. Right then, so before we crack on, just go a bit about the community project vote that, as mentioned last week. The video's up. There'll be a link somewhere up there in a minute. Pop across. There'll be one below to the voting video, so you can go and vote on that. And I'll take that down tomorrow, round about 11 p.m. UK time. So that gives everybody about 24 hours. If you haven't voted, go and have a vote, and we'll announce what the project is on Wednesday or Thursday this week. All right, so that's that. Excuse me. You may notice that the angle of the camera is a bit different. Well, I went to IKEA on Friday, so I bought something. What I'll do is I'll show you now what I bought, and then you'll see why the camera angle's changed, and I'll explain why in that. All right, so run VT. Right then, so I bought this on Friday from IKEA, and it's dead cool. It's meant for papers, but it's good for putting projects. So this is like one project shelf there, and then this is another project shelf. Obviously they're a bit bare at the moment because I want to just set it up. I'll put all the stuff on there, and I can have a third project down there. So that's cool. So what I had to do was move my paint racks from there, for example, because I put my light there. So I've got this light here now, which only shines in the middle. It used to be over there where that second paint rack is, so it used to shine this way. So it's sort of pain, but I've moved all my paints over there. I've got that in. I've had to split my monitors up a bit. So yeah, they're good. Yeah, so I've now it's actually made more space for me, which is dead cool. All right then, back to me talking rubbish. So there you go. That's why things look a bit different. I've got to reorganise everything and work out. You know, it's lighting more than anything because I use this big light here, obviously. So when I put the camera up in the normal place, I was like, half my face was dark like that. So I had a light side and then a dark side. So make of that what you will. Anyway, right. So some questions. Only a couple of questions again this week because obviously, as I explained, I'm late. I need to get on. So first question. Oops. Ooh. Just out of that, actually, it was an alert, and it's Paul Alba's birthday tomorrow. So, you know, it comes up on your phone and it's somebody's birthday on Facebook or something. It's Paul Alba's birthday tomorrow, so go and wish him happy birthday. Happy birthday, Paul, if you're watching. Okay, right, question. This is the set. I had to reshoot. I'm having to reshoot this question because when I answered it the first time, it wasn't particularly brilliantly answered. I'll probably not brilliantly answer it this time either, but we'll give it another go. Anyway, Daniel, he emailed my blog. Not this isn't in the question in the comments. This is from my blog. So he asked in the blog. He says, "Hey, I was wondering what bases do you use for 20mm Napoleonics, infantry, cavalry, and cannon, and how many figures to base?" It says I'm using black powder rules. Right, basing. We've talked about basing quite a lot in the past, and my view after painting on it for a long time is that do what you feel. The thing with historic games, mainly like Black Powder, it's all about frontage, and it's the frontage that's important, not necessarily A, the number of figures per base, and B, the depth. Right, it's the frontage. So, how I can only talk on how I do it. Right. So, for example, these Prussians here. Right. This is a 6. I think it's a 6x4. Is it 6? Yeah. This is a 6x4 base, and it's got 8 figures on it. Well, it's got 6 figures on this particular base, but the horse counts as 2. So that is 1 unit of Prussians, or 1 company, and I got 4 companies in a battalion. So that gives me a frontage of 24 centimetres, which is a standard unit in black powder, or falls within a standard unit in black powder anyway. So that's great, yeah. That fits in lovely, all right. The only problem with basing that size is I can't reduce the frontage of the unit really. I can make it use 3 of these, but 4, fine, 28mm. The British, for example, are based on a 3x4 base, so exactly half the size of that, right? Mainly because there's more companies in a British battalion, so I use them like that. So I can actually reduce the frontage quite easy on that, because I just knock out a couple of centre companies, and I can reduce the frontage down if I wanted to. But those are British, and that's the reason why I based them like that. So as you can see, even in black powder, I've got 2 different types, but I think they look better like that for British. They look better like that for Prussian. Cavalry are basically mounted on 4x4 bases, so I can get 2 horses. So that's 4 depth. So if you imagine a horse is based sort of on that width there, so 4 centimetre frontage by 4 centimetre depth, 2 per base. I haven't got any horses handy. So really it's up to you. Now in the black powder appendix in the rules, I think it talks about basing, and they say that 20 to 28mm, 28, 25, 28, whatever, yeah, the larger sizes, pretty much the same, base them up the same for that. If you're going lower, like 15mm and lower, then reduce the base sizes. Now, this unit here, I mean, I know it's not black powder. I've got some 10mm somewhere based up for black powder, but I can't remember. I've got 6mm based up for black powder as well. But these were just handy. That's a 3.5 centimetre frontage by 3 centimetre depth, 15mm. I suppose you could, you just reduce the base sizes. But what I try and do at 28mm is give it a 1.5 centimetre frontage per figure. Now you can make 2 centimetre frontages. I mean, I see a lot of people basing British, for example, on 4x4, French on 4x4. That's a 2 centimetre frontage per figure, and it doesn't matter. The amount of figures you've got, so this is the nub of the matter. The amount of figures you've got on a base and the size of the base doesn't particularly matter. What matters is when the unit's in line. So if you've got the unit in line, right, how long is the frontage of that unit in line? If it's, I can't remember if it's 16 centimetres to something like 28 centimetres as standard unit. I can't remember, but my Prussians are 24, so they're a fairly standard unit. And you get large units of 30 and above, and you get small units of less than 16, and you get tiny units as well, but we won't worry about them. They're skirmish units respectively. But that's the important bit, is the frontage of your unit. Now most battalions are standard units, so you just need to see what the maximum width of a standard unit is, and then look at the amount of troops that you've got, and then divide the number of troops amongst an evenly spaced set of bases. And it doesn't matter. Don't get hung up on how many figures. There's no rule about how many figures you can have on a base. You can have 2, but it might look a bit Spartan. So 3 or 4. Obviously, you want 2 ranks, because there's 2 ranks. You can equally have 3 ranks if you wanted to. It doesn't make any difference. It's just the aesthetic of what you want the base to look like in your army, and how how many figures you've got. I mean, I notice now that most warlord boxes contain 24 infantry figures, so obviously they're expecting that you're going to do, whatever that is, 2 centimetres, 24-inch frontage, 24 centimetre frontage, isn't it? At 2 centimetres per figure. So that's 12 in the front rank and 12 in the rear rank. Do you see what I mean? So that gives you, probably 4 figures per base, and you get that particular unit as a standard unit. So it's up to you really, how you base. Don't let people bully you about basing. It's entirely your decision, and as long as you keep in mind the frontage of the overall unit, because that's what's important, then you can't lose really. Obviously, you have to look at column. Effectively, the front, the width of your column has to be the length of your column has to be longer than the width of your column, if you see what I mean. So when you put stuff in column, so for example, these, if I put 4 of those in a row, 6 centimetres and then 4 of those, that's what 4 fours are 16. So it's 16 centimetres that way, 6 centimetres that way. So it's a legal column. If it was wider, or do you know what I mean? That's the only thing you really have to worry about is when you've got them in column, that the length of the column is longer than the width of the column. You're sorted. All right. The other thing as well is the fact that if different games have different frontages, for example, so you can use Sabat bases, I think that's what they're called, where it's effectively like a movement tray. So you create a movement tray and then you can put your little men. My Romans, for example, that I'm currently doing, I'm basing them on coins. Right? The reason I'm basing them on coins is because I can then use them ranked up in format for black powder, Hail Caesar. But I can also use them for skirmishing. I can use them on different size bases and types of bases for different games. So that gives me the ultimate flexibility. The only problem with that is the fact that you have loads of bases that you have to base up, and you have to get like the movement tray bases that fits pennies or 2 pennies or whatever. But it's not a major issue. So it's up to you. Base how you feel like. Don't sort of get hung up on it. I hope that answers your question. Right then, on with take 1. Right then, computer has gone to sleep. Let's see if I can wake it up, because there'll be a question on it. 1 second. We'll cut this bit out. Okay, the next question comes from Simon Bond. And he says, do you think ancients and Napoleonics are getting more popular or less popular these days? Well, no, I don't. In any way, to either answer, right? I think what you're seeing now is the fact that we live in a very isolated world, don't we, on YouTube? And obviously, YouTube was taken up by the more technically aware people, the more younger people, and that sort of stuff. I'm a professional IT person anyway, so I've always been involved in it for donkey's years. But a lot of people didn't really know about YouTube as such, and it was taken up, like I say, by the young and forward-looking individuals that tended to play stuff like Warhammer 40k, sci-fi type games, combat game, that sort of stuff. So we saw lots and lots of that sort of video. Now what we're seeing is more and more people putting up historical game videos and historical channels and stuff. And so I think what's happening is that those are getting more prevalent on YouTube. So, you're seeing more, because if you troll like the miniatures page and the various World War II forums, the Napoleonics forums, just look at the amount of information that's out there for ancients. There's tons more than there is for anything else, simply because that horse and musket gaming and ancient gaming have been around for such a long time, and so many people play them. But the sort of people that play them don't necessarily make YouTube videos or websites. You see what I mean? So it may seem as though they're becoming more prevalent, but they're not. I think that they by far outweigh the amount of non-historic and non-Napoleonic sort of games. You see what I mean? It's just it's just observable now that you're seeing more and more of these sort of channels appearing, simply because they're catching up with technology and feeling more comfortable with it. You know what I mean? I think that's it. They're no more or less relevant than they were 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I think a lot of people who have grown up with the Games Workshop world are now discovering historic wargaming in whatever form it is, and there are more sort of. I think that the frequency of game releases is getting higher. You know what I mean? Like there's, the stuff like Saga. I mean, I know Saga's a bit odd, but Saga and Malifaux and all these other sort of non-sci-fi games that are based in historic stuff are being released very fastly and are getting a lot of airtime on YouTube. Kickstarter as well as sort of bringing a lot of these sort of historic sort of skirmish quick games to the fore, because obviously Kickstarter promotes these things. Whether or not they fund or not is another matter, but the point is people are becoming more and more aware of them, which is a good thing, because the world isn't all about 40k and isn't all about Age of Sigmar stroke Warhammer. There's a lot more other stuff, and the more and more you look at historic games, the more and more you see where those sort of 40k Warhammer Fantasy battles have come from, if you know what I mean, because they, nothing gets created without influence, and obviously we see the influence of the Roman Empire in 40k. You see the influence of the Renaissance sort of Swiss sort of draw onto like Warhammer Empire armies. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of all there, including the rule sets. Anyway, so that's my opinion on that. And like I said, I could be wrong. Do you know what I mean? All human me. So that's the questions for this week. There was one from VK, but he's moving at the moment, I think, so you probably won't see this because I'll answer his question next week, because it's quite a good one actually. So that's it then. I can't do any more musing this week because I've run out of time. Don't forget, go and have a vote on the My Wargaming Live community project, and also go and join in the big build. I'll put a video in, put links into all those things, so you can go and have a look. Alright, well, thanks very much for watching. I'm sorry it's a bit late today, but there you go. Bye.